Make sure you pick up my 2 books that's in Amazon right now. The first one is Passive-Aggressive Racism and the System of White Supremacy. And I talk about in that particular book how the system of white supremacy really runs and on our daily lives here in America. In our latest book, 7 Steps to Decolonize the Mind, we go through those steps to try to deprogram you from the system of white supremacy. Make sure you can pick up those books on Amazon.com.
Introducing the African Diaspora News Channel app, your gateway to stories that's overlooked by the corporate mainstream media.
At African Diaspora News Channel, we cover stories that don't receive mainstream attention, and we serve as the voice to the global Black community. We are committed to informing and educating through the power of media, connecting the African diaspora one story at a time.
With our platform, we're helping to end injustice by exposing it.
Join us in standing for excellence in journalism and serving our community. Download the African Diaspora News app today.
Peace, family. Thank you so much for tuning in to African Diaspora News Channel. My name is Vicki Dillard, and I'm so pleased to be with you today, beloved. As you come in, be sure to give us a big thumbs up and share the broadcast. Would you do that? When you do that, it makes it more likely that other people will know that we're here and help to send out notifications so that folks can hear our broadcast that, of course, the topics and things that we discuss here have everything to do with us. So it's so very, very important. How many of you all know that billions of dollars and many, many centuries, no exaggerations, of all sorts of propaganda and media and all forms of dogma over many centuries has been used against us here in these United States and around the world, the oppressed peoples. Yes. So you know that our voices are the counter voice to this large apparatus that's been in place for so many years and that's so well funded. So when you are intentional about sharing, about tuning in, about listening, not just my broadcast here, but also tuning into my other wonderful colleagues' commentary, beloved, we're talking about issues that matter to you. So thank you so much for tuning in and being proactive about that. Family, certainly you all have by now heard about these different back-to-back domestic attacks here in the United States. Yes. Well, according to news sources, they are claiming that the perpetrators of these events, which they first said have nothing to do with each other, then you're starting to see information that comes out that says, well, maybe it's some similarities. Then you hear some reports saying, well, we're not sure if there's a connection. Well, family, all of this is suspect. Anything that's coming from mainstream legacy establishment media is subject. It should be, you should scrutinize closer. Yes, you should investigate closer. We don't just take their words for face value. We have to look into stuff, right? Now, watch this. You all know that there is, I say this all the time, that media is warfare. Yes, I say that all the time. Media is warfare. Media is warfare. Vicki, why do you say that? Because before there's a physical play out of war on the battlefield, there's a war in shaping the minds of the masses that precede any action that might take place, any physical action that may take place on any sort of battlefield. Do you all understand that whenever, especially the West, especially the United States, your most hegemonic forces and entities and nations and peoples, how many of you all know that before they decide to unjustly go after someone or a nation, they first demonize that individual in the news? The reason they do that, family, is they demonize a person when the United States or when the West or whoever the oppressive entity or force is, whoever the perpetrator is at the time, when they go after him, they know you're going to be silent. Because in your mind, you're saying, oh, they're authoritarian, oh, they're a dictator, oh, they are racist, oh, they are this or that, right? So they first do that because you serve as a form of an ally to their attack. You actually become complicit in the undoing. You don't see nothing if they use your taxpayer dollars when they start shipping your sons and daughters off to unjust war. Talk black to me, somebody. When they refuse to give foundational Black Americans, the people that created and labored and shed blood for America, they refuse to give us one red cent. But you can sit here and justify sending hundreds of billions of dollars for Nazi Ukrainian soldiers. You can justify sending billions and billions of dollars, using billions of dollars for legal and illegal immigrants in the United States. When your mind says okay to that and says no to the other, you know you're in the matrix. Let's just leave it at that. Well, with these recent attacks in the United States, it's our government, it's our media apparatus that's telling us, oh, this got to do with ISIS. Now, y'all know all of a sudden they talking about ISIS and Al-Qaeda again as it relates to the stuff that's going on in Syria, right? In Lebanon, and of course, the wars and all that stuff that's happening in the Middle East, right? We saw like Al-Shabaab and other such forces, even on the continent of Africa, right? Which they claimed that those groups were offshoots. How many of y'all remember years ago, I did a broadcast right here on this network, and I've since done several times since then, reminded you that even under the Trump administration, when Trump was president the first time, his State Department spent a lot of money for nonprofit organization to study Black soldiers, specifically Kenyan soldiers. How many of you all know that that one of the things that some of the things that they were looking for in those soldiers were those soldiers that were heterosexual, that were masculine, that were successful and all that? How many of y'all know they were studying Kenyan soldiers and nobody? I was asking questions, what in the world are we using taxpayer dollars for to study masculine heterosexual soldiers in Kenya? Talk black to me, somebody. Now, they were specifically studying those groups because they said that these are the ones that are more likely to join resistance groups that America and the West labels, you know, a terrorist organization. Anybody that fights against imperialists, you know, they're going to throw that title on you. Keep those things in mind while you get ready. I want you to watch this clip in just a moment. So just before we show you this very brief clip, because I got to show you the play, those of us who are foundational Black Americans, those of us who are natives to this country, and even some of you that are in other parts of the world where you say, well, what does international news have to do with me? Well, I'm gonna show you in this clip. Fox News is getting ready to show you what's going on. But before I do that, let me give you a little background. This is a piece I'm reading now from CNN. What does it say? The headline, and this is the one that they just updated today. It says, scouting the city, setting a fire and bringing in supplies. Here's how the NOLA, N-O-L-A, for those who don't know, that stands for New Orleans. The New Orleans suspect planned the attack. Now, I want y'all to watch this. Just listen to just a little bit of background. I'm not going to read this whole article. I just want to give you a little background so that those of you that are not familiar with what's been happening here over the past few days and weeks, I just want to bring you up to speed. This, well, from the new year, so not weeks even, just barely a week. Nearly a week after, it says, Shamsuddin Jabbar rammed a pickup truck into a busy crowd celebrating New Year's in New Orleans, killing 14. Details of how he planned the attack are becoming clear. Y'all listen. As investigators piece together his movements and motivations, it appears that Jabbar, whom officials have said acted alone and was radicalized. Now, you can't see the article right now because I just decided to do this at the last minute. Family, they got this, the word radicalized, highlighted here. So that way you can click on it and it'll take you to another link. I won't stop there, but let me keep going. I just want you to know they put an emphasis on that. They claimed he was acting alone, was radicalized, was preparing the Bourbon Street attack for months. He visited the city multiple times in the months prior. He brought firearms and homemade explosives device with him. He rented a home on Airbnb and attempted to burn it down in what officials believe was an attempt to hide criminal evidence. Here's what we know about how Jabbar planned his attack. It goes on, as it just mentioned before. It says where this section talks about how he scouted the city months before the attack. It says that he visited New Orleans at least twice in the months prior to the attack in October and November. It says FBI New Orleans Special Agent in Charge Lionel Myrtle said on Sunday at the news conference, the attacker stayed in the Airbnb, what I just mentioned before there, beginning October 30th. It gives more details in this section, but I'm not going to read all that. It says that during his trip, to scout the scene, it said he used Meta smart glasses, according to FBI. The smart glasses can take photos and videos, so they put all that in there, right? It says he wore glasses and all that, all these little details that they just telling you to make it look like this is legit. I mean, look, just follow me, family. It goes on to say he set fire to the rental about 15 minutes after midnight on New Year's Day, just before carrying out the attack. It says it changed roughly 2 minutes after he left because the thermostat indicated that the temperature was rising inside the residence, and he tried to keep up. He tried to keep up with the fire that was growing inside. Officials believe Jabbar was hoping to burn the entire house down, hiding evidence of his crimes. He used an open flame in the home's linen closet. Child, it's giving all these crazy details. That's all. That's just some miscellaneous stuff. The next section says he constructed IEDs. For those of you that don't know, it's about these improvised explosive devices. That's what that is. It says he used in coolers. He used those in coolers on Bourbon Street. So it's just giving a lot of details about that, right? He talks about the supply arms, including coolers, firearms that he had with him. It's just going on and on and on. It talks about the 16,000-pound truck that was rented. That's a different section. But I wanted to put an emphasis on the fact that now they're saying he acted alone, and they're emphasizing the fact that he was radicalized, right? Now, some of y'all may have forgotten that when this first came out, folks was trying to say it might be a connection to others. Other folks came out with the law enforcement had actually come out talking about how, no, we don't believe this person acted alone. How many of y'all remember some of those reports? So this is all intentional to confuse and to throw a whole bunch of stuff out there. Family, put your seatbelts on. Family, please put your seatbelts on. I want us to get ready to play for you this absolutely outrageous and absolutely shocking Fox News video clip that was recently put out about these incidents. Now, the headline of this clip that you're getting ready to watch, the headline of it, I believe, says manhunt continues. Listen to that term. Manhunt continues for additional suspects in New Orleans terror attack probe. Now, this was just 5-6 days ago, family. Watch what this FBI agent, listen to what he's getting ready to say, what he's getting ready to say here. Again, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, beloved. Share the broadcast, would you? I know sometimes the notifications may or may not go out. Y'all know how that goes. So we're going to be intentional about that. Family, prepare yourself to watch this clip now.
At the neighborhood. So, are you hearing anything from your people in law enforcement as to how widespread this could be?
I have a good source that was telling me, but I have not been able to confirm it through a second person. But this is an investigator that this individual is not Arab. He's a Black American, and that this is a Nation of Islam group, that this individual practiced Islam, but under the Nation of Islam. Now, I don't know if that, I haven't been able to verify that with a second source, but that possibility is out there. I think from what I've seen that's coming in is that we know that they chose New Orleans, but we have to ask why. Why did they go all the way there? That night, they could have chosen in any state the ability to kill numerous people, but they chose that state and that venue. I think we're going to see a link somewhere why they chose that. Either somebody was related to that area, somebody else lived over there that coordinated it, and he just drove the truck in. But there had to be a coordination in some way, shape, or form to New Orleans.
Important questions. Jonathan T. Gilliam, thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Todd, can I say one other thing?
Sure, quickly.
I always do this to you. I think it's very imperative that Donald Trump, just like he put Tom Homan as the deportations are. I think this is a very important thing because Tom Homan is an expert who worked in that field. We need experts who worked in the field of these types of operations that, like the old Red Cell, Navy SEAL Red Cells, where they worked as terrorists, planning these ops so they could reverse engineer them and share with everybody how, when, where, and why a terrorist or a school shooter or these types of individuals would attack. If we do that and people take it seriously, we could form an entire threat assessment throughout all industry across the country, and it would be so inexpensive and easy to do that it would blow people's minds, and effective if people would do it.
No.
Okay. Now, did you all hear that madness? I told you to put your seatbelts on. I told you to get ready. This was shortly after these attacks happened. You already have the man that you just heard from there. Let's break this down. Is Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan Gilliam took his funny looking self on Fox News. Who is Jonathan Gilliam? He's a former FBI Federal Bureau of Investigation special agent. Right after this event, he starts by seeding, throwing out little stuff to mess up the narrative early on after the attacks, while they're supposed to be investigating, family, while they're supposed to be getting to the bottom line of this. He already came out, this former FBI agent, and put the blame on the Nation of Islam. Talking about trying to show connections, rather. He said he got this from a quote-unquote good source, one of the investigators that's on it. He admits to you he has not confirmed this, and that he said he ain't even heard this from another source, but he throwing that out there. He says quite definitively, oh, this ain't no Arab Muslim. This is a Black American Muslim, specifically with the Nation of Islam. If y'all don't see the play in this, I don't know what's wrong with you. How many of you all know that the Nation of Islam officially trained not to use firearms and are nonviolent? See, this is why we got to inform the domestic and international family about what the hell is really going on, in case you run out here and start believing this madness that these oppressive voices are sitting here saying. How many of you all know that in their 80-some year history, approximately, since the Honorable Elijah Muhammad founded in the United States, that's been their modus operandi? Now, they're not going to let you mess with them. Now, you're not going to beat them up and not get dealt with that. But how many of you all know that they specifically teach them not to be the aggressor? They teach them not to carry firearms and stuff, and not to be violent. That is a stated policy and feature of the Nation of Islam. Why would this devil come out here and specifically make it clear, oh, he ain't no Arab Black? He says he's a Black American. Y'all better pay attention to what they trying to do there. Y'all better pay attention to the play. He goes on to say he couldn't confirm it, but he got it from a good source. He said that this is an investigative source friend of his. He emphasized the fact that he's not Arab. He emphasized the fact that he is a Black American Muslim. He emphasized the Nation of Islam, which of course that has to do with the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan's. He's a part of that group, their type of Islam. And then he's sitting here saying, when it's all done, when the investigation continues to go forward, he says that he's certain that we're going to see a link. Y'all hear him say that? Oh, I believe we're going to see. I definitely believe we're going to see. I forget exactly how he said it, but he showed a level of confidence. Why would somebody put that out there? And the attack only happened a day or so before this video footage that we just showed you. Right after you all heard press conferences of authorities stating that many of them said that they could not definitively say that they had acted alone at that time. And they believe actually that a lot of these different perpetrators didn't act alone. And they believe others were at large. And they were even soliciting the assistance and the help of the public. How many of y'all remember that? Now this article I read you from CNN before I showed you the clip, the article is definitively saying, oh, he acted alone now. Can you get your lies straight, America? Now, why is Vicki bringing this up, and what does this have to do with international stuff? I can't see the chat right now. I know we just went live a few minutes ago, but I want to say this to some of my family that looks at this live, or those of you that will be watching this replay later. How many of you all remember a year ago or so, I covered the United Nations General Assembly address, where nations from around the world come to make a formal address during that particular General Assembly summit? How many of y'all remember where I did back-to-back commentary on, for example, some of the nation heads that came there to speak on behalf of nations of the Sahel, for example. How many of y'all remember that our brothers from over there during the UN General Assembly said before the world, and I covered and I showed you a clip of it right here on this network, where they told us they could give us evidence that France and in other instances, US forces, the Western forces, were actually the ones that were sponsoring and creating those so-called terrorist organizations in their country, and that they had proof that it was them behind it. How many of y'all remember that some of those very leaders in those African countries, specifically West African nations, it wasn't just one country, that's why I'm using general terms. It was multiple African countries that alluded to this or specifically said this. How many of you all know that they said they provided the Security Council with evidence of it before they made that address? That they gave them receipts. I believe specifically this particular one speech had to do with France's involvement. And France is a member of the Security Council. They called them out and said that they had already provided the United Nations with evidence that a Security Council member was behind the undoing of their country, that they were actually sponsoring and supporting terrorist organizations in their African countries. And nobody's saying nothing. That's relevant here because we see a similar play where the powers that shouldn't be are hiding their little dirty hands. How many of you all know that Burkina Faso, Mali, we're seeing many other African countries that are kicking out France, right? They want them to take their residual armies and get them out, right? How many of you all know that not only France, but the United States, they've ended some of their contracts with the United States? How many of y'all know the United States had its most expensive drone base, $100 million drone base in the Sahel? Now, how are you going to say that those nations are poor and all that, America, but you turn around and spend $100 billion, your most expensive drone base that's out there? Watch these. You got to ask yourself, why didn't you want to leave America when they was trying to get you out? And now that you all are out, some of those very countries are being successful in removing some of those terrorists that were in their countries. How is it that when you claim that you came over here to help us stop radicalization, some of the radicalization actually stopped? Can it be, could it be, that the reason why France, the United States, and other Western entities didn't want to leave is because they knew that they were involved in some of the undoing happened in those countries? And I want you all to see a similar play here in the United States. Keep that in mind with the fact that one of our current in the United States security advisors, let me give you his name right now. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up while I'm talking. This individual that I'm going to mention to you now, National Security Advisor is his title, Jake Sullivan. Now, I didn't ask the team to play this, but Jake Sullivan is one of the United States security advisors. He also was a top advisor to Hillary Clinton. When you see Hillary Clinton, when she did that big testimony in that hearing before Congress some years ago, one of the people that you see advising and talking to her is just Jake Sullivan guy. Now he's a top security advisor in the United States, right? Very high level position. Do you all know that Jake Sullivan, in an email, and we got the proof, if you follow me on Instagram at Vicki X Dillard, VICKIX Dillard. If you even follow me on my own YouTube channel at VickiDillard.tv, go to the community page where we do posts, go to VickiDillard.tv. You can see on my community page, I posted a WikiLeaks email from Jake Sullivan. I know y'all saying, what's the big deal about the email, Vicki? Guess what he says in the email that was released? I'm quoting him. He says in the email, AQ, which stands for Al-Qaeda, is on our side in Syria. How many of y'all know that ISIS is a splinter group and an offshoot of Al-Qaeda? They're separate now, but they were an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. Why am I bringing this up? They're sitting there telling you that the perpetrator in New Orleans is ISIS inspired. They're conflating his type of Islam and him being a Nation of Islam Muslim. When everybody knows that the stated policy and doctrine of the, if you want to call it a doctrine of the Nation of Islam, if you want to use that term doctrine, you understand sometimes different spiritual groups have different titles, but lack of a better word, their doctrine or their dogma is non-violence. They're specifically telling you, oh, he ain't Arab, he Black American. Listen to the language. And they're telling you he's ISIS inspired. You got the security advisor, Jake Sullivan, in a WikiLeaks email telling you that this so-called terrorist organization, which America claims she don't love or like, is on our side. All the stuff that's happening in Syria right now, which we won't get into all that. I'll talk about this kind of stuff in my offline webinar. In fact, I got a new upcoming webinar coming up January 26th at the time of this airing. If you are watching this right now, be sure to go to my website at vickiplanet.com. Perhaps at the end, I'll ask if they can pin my clip, my link, but it's a free webinar where I'm going to be breaking down stuff that took place in Syria, which I've already done that in another webinar, but I'm going to be telling you all what's really behind these attacks in the United States. So for those of you that don't know, New Orleans has a lot of French-speaking folks. How many of y'all know that even Macron gave a statement on the New Orleans attacks because there's a connection between France and New Orleans? How many of y'all know that? I'm going to break all that down. And New Orleans is known as a city that has a lot of high-level spirituality, including a lot of witchcraft and stuff, right? I'm going to talk about that offline during my upcoming free webinar, Sunday, January 26th. So be sure to click the link so that you can save your free seat. Or go to my website at vickiplanet.com. Again, I'm going to ask if they can pin it for us later, but watch this. This ain't making no sense, y'all. Why did I bring up Jake Sullivan? Why did I bring up our brothers in the Sahel and other countries in West Africa that hinted at or explicitly made it clear during the UN address a year ago that they found out that France and the United States and other forces were actually the ones behind these groups? I'm trying to tell you, could it be that they're trying to throw us off so that we don't find out who's actually behind this? And they're trying to put this albatross, they're trying to put this around the necks of folks in the Nation of Islam when we know darn well that that the Nation of Islam, they don't even stand for this kind of stuff. Just because Minister Farrakhan speaks against injustice in the United States and around the world don't mean that you get to turn around and throw this around their necks. And especially you don't get to throw that around their necks when your top security advisor is sitting here bragging about how these very terrorist organizations, America, that you say is bad and terrible, you bragging about the fact that they're on your side. And that the current leader, now that Syria has fallen, the current leader of Syria is just a rebranded Al-Qaeda guy who was a terrorist in the United States, had a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head. Now we're rubbing shoulders with him and congratulating him on running Syria. We won't go there right now on that. Before I go, I'm going to tell you this. Some of you all are unfamiliar with Cointelpro. How many of you all have heard about Cointelpro? How many of you all have heard about that phrase, Cointelpro? If you haven't, let me give you just a little bit of background on it. This headline that I'm reading from, which actually comes from Berkeley Library, which is considered to be a prestigious educational institution here in the United States. This piece I'm reading from is from Berkeley Library. The headline, it says, and it's written by, this piece is written by Virgie Hoban. It says, quote, discredit, disrupt, and destroy. FBI records acquired by the library reveal violent surveillance of Black leaders, civil rights organizations. Do you all see how it's impossible not to connect what's happening internationally with what's happening domestically? That's what the United States is trying to do, specifically against Black Americans. And we're calling you out because you're not fixing to sit here and lie on us. This piece says it was in the late 1960s and J. Edgar Hoover smelled trouble. For those of you that don't know, J. Edgar Hoover was one of the longest serving former FBI directors. He was a total racist, a devil. So that's who he is, in case you didn't know who he was. Let me continue this piece. It says, in the late 1960s, and J. Edgar Hoover smelled trouble. It was the late 1960s, J. Edgar Hoover smelled trouble. The status quo, hallowed by hate, sanctioned by Jim Crow, was beginning to crack. Behind the scenes, Hoover's Federal Bureau of Investigation was keeping watch. In 1967, the FBI quietly unleashed a covert surveillance operation targeting, quote, subversive civil rights groups and Black leaders, including the Black Panther Party, Martin Luther King Jr., Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and many others. The objective, according to the FBI memo, was to, quote, expose, y'all listen, this is the FBI's explicit objective that they said in their own memo of Cointelpro, to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the radical fight for Black rights and Black power. A part of what you're seeing them intentionally throw out the Nation of Islam in the middle of this mess is so that they can do what? Misdirect. Do you all know that when you all sit up here and still fight about members of the Nation of Islam or other Black groups, when you still sit up here and blame the Nation of Islam for taking out Malcolm, when you know darn well there's more than enough evidence to show that your U.S. government was behind him? Remember, they told us it was only one person that was behind the deletion of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but we found out that the government was behind that too. Right? So what is this about? It's about what they told you years ago in their 1967 Cointelpro FBI memo. What did they say that a part of their objective was with this operation? Was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit. Y'all better not fall for this foolishness. Details of that sabotage plaster, I'm reading more from the article on Cointelpro now. Details of that sabotage plaster internal FBI records with thousands of pages scattered across a medley of databases. Now the UC Berkeley Library is working to put those pieces together. I'm just bringing that to your attention to let you all know what that was, a little bit of what that was about. There's a library now that's trying to put to pieces what was actually going on during that time, receipts from that. But let me read you one more little part of this article. It says, in May, just before the movement for Black Lives Matter cascaded over the planet, the library acquired a digital database of FBI records on the surveillance of African Americans throughout the 20th century, expanding the trove of federal records that the library has assembled over the years. It says that today the materials provide not only a window into the FBI's past abuse, but also an unplanned guide for the Black activists demanding racial justice again now 50 years later. One more thing I want to say. These documents reveal and confirm the kind of root investment in anti-Blackness and quelling dissent that has long been a part of our government structure, says Lee Rayford, a professor of African-American studies at UC Berkeley. We can only imagine the extent to which the current administration and the current FBI is working to discredit, disrupt, and destroy, it says, Black Lives Matter and other movements. Now, I have to bring that to y'all's remember because some of you all think that the way that the government works in other countries is different than the way they work against Black Americans in the United States. It's not. And this is from the highest investigatory agencies on the planet that was secretly doing this, and who we know now and can prove in no limit of time has been doing that and continues to do it today. When you listen to that former FBI special agent, Jonathan Gilliam, on Fox News, only a day or so after the attacks, sit up there and just throw out the Nation of Islam explicitly. So explicitly say it was a Nation of Islam, explicitly say it was a Black Muslim, explicitly say, no, they weren't Arab, explicitly tell you, oh yeah, we're expected to see some links between why they chose that city and what's going on there and trying to connect it with them. When the stated objective of the Nation of Islam is not violence, and they don't even carry weapons, y'all, you better wake up and smell the begonias. I'm sounding the alarm now to tell you all, without getting into any details now, that just like they told you years ago that their intention of creating Cointelpro was so that they can impart discredit and to misdirect, They're trying to discredit and to misdirect us about the truth of this too, by trying to blame the most patriotic people on the planet. Who? The very people America lynched, the very people that created America, the very people that shed blood, the very people you owe reparations and justice to. We fought in all America's wars with the hope that they would see us like men and women, with the hope that they would give us freedom. Only for you to continue to spit in our face time and time again. How dare you do this, Fox News? Now, of course, I'm not directly related to the Nation of Islam and stuff like that, like I used to be with my stuff like that before, but I have the greatest respect in the world for Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that I see him as my spiritual dad long distance. I claim it as that, even if he don't claim to be my. Everybody knows that I have a major respect for the Nation of Islam. Y'all better get over whether or not you agree with their religion and focus on the fact that this is a group and an organization and the people that have spoken for the whole of the masses of Black folks in the United States and around the world. And you better be careful not to fall for this and be careful to call these lies out. I'm going to leave it right there. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. I'm going to be talking about the details behind this and the witchcraft and what's going on and why they chose the city of New Orleans and who's really behind a lot of this in my upcoming webinar, Sunday, January 26th. Again, go to my website, VickiPlanet.com. Go to my website at VickiPlanet.com so that you can get your free seat so we can talk about this offline, beloved. Again, be sure to comment, be sure to like and share. I can't wait to see you again.